Alright, which JoJo stands in Part 3 were made using the stand arrow? For those who don't know, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a manga, and in it they have a power called stands. To know what a stand is, basically imagine if your soul could leave your body and punch stuff. And there are a few ways to get stands. So you could be born with a stand, you could develop one over time, or you could get stabbed or shot by a special arrow. So, the arrow does not show up in Part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It shows up in Part 4 first. However, the stands in Part 3 were created using the arrow, or at least a lot of them were. Not all of them, but a bunch of them were. The stand arrows are basically an explanation for how Dio got his hands on so many stand users so quickly, despite the fact that that stand users didn't show up in the previous parts. The answer is simple. He had a way to create them. That and stand users attracting other stand users. But now, I'm going to go over all the stands in Part 3 and discuss which ones were created by the arrow. Now, in some cases, it's kind of confirmed how they were created, and in other cases, we'll have to speculate a bit. So, let's start off with Star Platinum. That was created through the arrow. When the stand pierced Dio's body, which was also Jonathan's body at the time, Jonathan sent a psychic distress link to his descendants, despite being dead at the time, because his body was still fighting Dio. And that gave them stands. So this covers Star Platinum and Hermit Purple, as well as Holly's unnamed stand, which isn't showing up on the wiki. Now, Magician's Red. Okay, this is the stand of basically the sort of mentor character and resident stand expert, Avdol. Avdol's had his stand for a very long time. We don't know how long he's had it, but he's at least had it for years. Possibly was born with it, but in any case, he definitely didn't have it with the stand arrow. So next up, Silver Chariot and Hierophant Green are in the same category. Stands that the users had for basically since birth. Like, Silver Chariot, Polnareff mentions that he was born with it, and we know that Kakyoin had Hierophant Green since he was a child. So, both of them were likely born with their stands. So, not from the arrow. Iggy's stand, he probably developed it in some way, might have been born with it, but he didn't get it with an arrow. The World, Dio's stand, this is confirmed pretty much that he got it through a stand arrow, or at least heavily implied. Now, Tower of Grey. Avdol knew who Tower of Grey's user was. If he got it from a stand arrow, Avdol probably wouldn't have known if it was a very recent stand user, so I don't think it was a stand arrow. Dark Blue Moon, Strength, we don't know those two. They might have been stand arrows, because Avdol didn't recognize the stands or their users. As such, I would say that those are good candidates for having gotten them out of a stand arrow. Not confirmed, but good candidates. Now, Ebony Devil and Yellow Temperance. Okay, so Ebony Devil. Avdol knew who this guy was, so he probably had his stand either developed or from birth. Yellow Temperance, I don't think Avdol ever met him, and Avdol didn't really know who he was either, or mentioned a stand that could shapeshift like that, so maybe it was developed through an arrow, so I think it's very likely that it wasn't. Now, Avdol didn't really seem to know who the Hangman and the Emperor were, J. Guile and Whole Horse. However, we can pretty much confirm that J. Guile's had his stand for years before he met the Joestars, so definitely not the stand arrow, at least most likely not. And judging from how Whole Horse works with him, and is very familiar with him, I'm pretty sure Whole Horse had his stand for years too. Now, Avdol gets basically not going to spoil anything, but he doesn't comment on a few of these other fights for reasons of not being there at the moment. But anyway, the Empress, why are you looking at a video with all the stands if you don't want spoilers? So, yeah, just ignore that, any spoilers. Anyway, the Empress stand, we just don't know. Could be the arrow, could have been for years. There's no real indication. Wheel of Fortune? Difficult to say, honestly. We don't really get his backstory or anything like that. Now, Enya, she's basically Dio's Avdol, so she knows enough about stands that she probably had it for years. So I'm pretty sure she just was born with her stand or developed it at some point in her life. Lovers, we just don't know. Same thing with the Sun. We barely even learn anything about the Sun's users. Now, Death 13, I am fairly certain that this was not a result of the stand arrow. The reason is that the Death 13's user is basically a hyper-intelligent infant. And I'm pretty sure that if the stand arrow hit an infant who wasn't already hyper-intelligent, he probably would just die. So I'm pretty sure Death 13's user developed the stand on his own, because we have seen that stands can give some animals hyper-intelligence, like Iggy, for example. But this isn't necessarily the case when the stand arrow hits them, as opposed to when they develop them on their own. So I'm pretty sure that Mash Boy did not use a stand arrow. Now, as for Judgment with Cameo, we just don't know enough. Avdol also didn't seem to recognize the stand or say, oh yes, I've met Cameo before, and he appears in this fight, so I'm guessing that Judgment and Cameo did use the stand arrow. Now, High Priestess and Midler, Avdol knew who that was, so she probably didn't use the stand arrow. So, Geb, difficult to say. Geb does mention that he met Dio, but he didn't mention that he had a stand before then, at least as far as I can remember. He gives his backstory, but yeah, like, it's impossible to say. If I had to guess, I'd say Indul probably had Geb before meeting Dio, because of how well he used it and how experienced he clearly is with it, but it's possible he could just be very talented with his stand. Now, Oingo and Boingo, Knume and Toth, I am fairly certain that both those guys got their stands through an arrow. They don't seem like the type to develop them naturally. Anubis, well, stand from hundreds of years ago that basically survived by being part of a sword. So probably didn't, so the stand user probably developed it by just getting very good at his craft as a blacksmith. Now, next up, we have Bastet and now from Mariah Sefsalesi, and quite frankly, I don't know. There's just not enough on either of those stands users to say for sure if they were, how to put it. To say for sure if they were stand users that were created by Dio or if they weren't. I think they probably were, though. I think Dio probably gave them their stands. Same thing with Pet Shop, because Pet Shop doesn't show the intelligence that, say, Iggy did. Dio probably just shone with his stand. Now, as for Osiris and Atum of the Darby brothers, they definitely did not create their own stands. They definitely did not have the stand arrow. There's Holly's stand, and Jonathan's stand arrow's there. Osiris and Atum definitely weren't created by the stand arrow, because it's implied that they were taking people's souls with their stands long before they met Dio. Yeah, like for years. So now, Tenador, Sax, and Cream, we just don't know enough, but I do think it's likely that one or both of them would use the stand arrow. Yeah, a bit of a short video, but thanks for watching. Thank you for watching, everyone, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.